For reasons that have been a matter of some dispute, I appear to be in the middle, sat between Dr. Will Large and Dr. Roy Jackson. Why I'm sat in the middle is a mystery that will be revealed, I think, in a few videos' time. Partly because you're in my office.
Oh, yeah. And the other reason is you're a tyrant.
Yeah, I'm a tyrant. However, I'm going to use that tyranny to ask Roy something. You and I were expressing confusion earlier on about the modal form of the ontological argument. A lot of people talk about the modal form of the ontological argument as a kind of more contemporary, more powerful, almost more muscular form of the argument that kind of knocks aside all those objections. Help.
Yeah, well, it's more contemporary.
I'm not sure about any of these things, but that's how often people see it, I think.
Yes, because that's what it brings it into the 20th century with Alvin Plantinga. Modal, I guess, when people talk about modal arguments, it's referring specifically to how we use probability, necessity, etc. So it's focusing more on those kind of ideas. And Plantinga suggests this idea of what it calls possible worlds, in the fact that we can conceive of possible worlds. So he starts off by saying, well, let's start with this world, which we shouldn't have trouble conceiving. And within this world, there are many, numerous, uncountable contingent things, facts about the world, whether it's historical facts. You know, Hitler came to power in 1933. Man landed on the moon in 1969.
I think that is contested. Actually.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
The dinosaurs were destroyed, possibly by a meteorite, etc. These are all kind of historical facts, but they're contingent. They're contingent in the sense that they could be other than what they were, etc. So the world, this world, is full of contingency. But you can imagine other worlds, other possible worlds, where the contingencies are different.
So in a really basic way, today in this world, I'm sat in the middle of this discussion. Yeah. We can conceive of a world in which I was sat over there and you sat differently.
You can conceive a world where instead of the three of us, there are three dinosaurs.
That'd be...
In fact, there probably are three dinosaurs.
Yeah,
in a metaphorical sense, talk about the ontological argument. So you can conceive these other possible worlds.
Okay.
So we have these contingency. Then you look to necessity. Now, what are necessary things? I mean, one necessary thing we can certainly conceive of is mathematics. So 2 + 2 = 4. Now, that happens to be the case in this world, not just other worlds, but this world. Because it's the case, and because it's necessary, it must therefore exist on any other possible world. Because it's necessary. Contingency by its nature doesn't have to, but the fact that it exists on this world requires it to exist on any other possible world. Now, when you apply that to God, Plantinga says, well, okay, we might want to say God does not exist on this world, but we cannot deny the possibility, it's logically possible for God to exist on another possible world. If it's the case that he exists on another possible world, and he's a necessary being, he must therefore exist on all possible worlds. Therefore God exists. That's kind of how it goes.
That's quite a big if, I think.
Yes, there's lots of ifs.
Well, one thing which might be, just shows my ignorance of the logic of possible worlds, but why does something that's necessary in one world have to be necessary in all other worlds? It's because you couldn't distinguish them between necessity and contingency.
Yes, because necessity requires it has to exist. I mean, 2 + 2 = 4 must be the same. It must apply to every
So it's part of some fundamental structural reality.
Yeah,
except if I think that mathematics isn't.
Yeah. I mean, this is what you come to. It's like we're saying you could say, well, there are no necessary things, which makes it that's at least one problem with the argument.
But you could possibly also argue that, say, a divine being exists in some worlds and not others. If you say that a divine being is not a necessary being, because again we come back to almost really it's the same card trick played with different cards almost.
That's why I say it's
the word necessary. Is that if God is a necessary being? Well, by saying God is a necessary being, you've already answered. It seems like a big question.
I mean, that's why I say it's contemporary, but I don't know if it's any better.
So there's two problems with it. There might not be any necessary truth anyway. And the second one is, well, God might not be a necessary truth.
Yeah. If you say God is a necessary truth, you've already shown God, well, you've already shown God must exist. So that seems like including the conclusion and the premises, and exactly that is begging the question. And that, I think, somewhat undermines what, for a minute, almost seemed like it might be the answer.
So how did Plantinga have a whole career based on Was that what?
Yeah. I think, well, who knows? But yeah, I think we would recommend you just read the book. Thank you.
You wanted to make a response, though?
No.
What I mean is, although that was a flippant remark, what I really meant is I imagine Plantinga has got a response to these obvious criticisms of his argument.
I don't think they're very successful. I think it does go back.
But you have to accept that God is a necessary.
I mean, he's using. I mean, I'm putting it in a much simpler way. I mean, he does use logic, considerably more sophisticated than I'm explaining. But it is still, I think, still
the fundamental.
Yes.
So he could say, "I am just explaining how an ontological argument could work if you accepted that God was a necessary idea." And I'm putting it in modern logic.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but he seems to be convinced that God is a necessary being.
Yes,
I think
you can just deny that. And presumably, could you also say, if this works, I can conceive of God not existing on any possible world?
Yeah, God not being necessary in this world, and therefore is not necessary in this world, is not necessary in any.
Yeah.
So an inverse form seems no less logical.
But talking again about, I mean, I did read Plantinga years and years ago. I wasn't convinced. But the other thing, talking about the context of an argument, thinking about it, is that Plantinga himself is a committed Christian.
Yes.
Although he would he deny that there's any relationship between
I think he would.
Christian faith and ontological arguments?
He tries to use what he would say is using sort of philosophical methods in order to demonstrate the existence of God.
It's part of that move, what people call rational theism.
Yes, that's right.
You know, that kind of 20th century particularly kind of attempt to demonstrate the belief in the God of Christianity often is something that's compatible with science and entirely rational and compatible with philosophy.
I mean, as Richard Swinburne, Keith Ward, and people
like that. Yeah, the move of, and it had a real kind of surge in certain portions of the last century. I'm not sure it has quite that surge now. Okay, thank you.
Pleasure. What do we do now?
Just sit here.